Hey guys, it's me Homer, and for today's video, I'm going to teach you how to knit, give you basic information about knitting, and give you some materials that you can substitute when you don't have the right materials. But before we get into the video, please make sure to subscribe, leave a like, comment down below, and ring the notification bell. So for the first part of the video, I'm going to give you some information that I don't know how to enter in the video smoothly, so I'm just going to give them their own part in this video.
And so you can avoid this trouble.
So first of all, the size of the yarn and needle actually matters, because if you're going to use a small yarn in a big needle, it will end up looking like this. It will have big gaps and it just won't look pretty. Unless you like it, then you can use it. And just make sure to make the sizes equal. If you're going to use small yarn, also make sure that you are using a small needle, and if you're using a thick yarn, also use a thick needle. But in my case, I actually use a pencil, and to lock them, I only use a twist tie. Second, the amount of force that you put into pulling the yarn actually matters, because it can mess up your estimated measurement. In my case, I accidentally made mine too loose and it got big. So what I did is just fold up knitted product and then sewn it. And just don't pull too tight, because you'll have a hard time letting the other needle enter the stitches. The third one doesn't really matter that much. It's just the way that we hold the needle and the yarn are actually different. In my case, I roll the yarn in my index finger, and for the needles, I hold it like I'm writing with a pen. And in your case, it can be different, so just explore on which you feel more comfortable with.
For the materials, you'll need yarn, 2 pencils, some thread and needle, and a twist tie. So for the pattern, I didn't really use my original pattern because it changed along the way and there were just some problems with it, but I'm just going to walk you through the planning. So first of all, I'm planning out the measurements and the size, but it didn't really work because my knitting was too loose and I accidentally cast on so many stitches. And now I'm planning all of the parts of the bag. So to estimate the length of your knitted fabric, you wanna measure the size that you want and then multiply it by 3. For my first trial, I multiplied the length by 5 and it was too long, so along the way I realized that 3 is the enough number. And at the end of the measurement of your yarn, that's where you do the slip knot. So first, you take 2 sides of the yarn and then put them together to make a loop. Next, you wanna make sure that the working yarn is above the tail. Then put the working yarn behind the loop, then pull it inwards. After that, slip the pencil in and tighten it. The next thing to do is the cast on. So hold the 2 yarns with your middle finger to the pinky, then separate them with your thumb and index finger. Then make sure that the tail is closer to you than the working yarn. Then go under the bottom left side of the diamond, then under the second to the last piece of yarn and over to the loop in your thumb. Don't worry, I'll show it again. You'll have it look like this when you're done. A good tip is to tie the tail yarn so you won't accidentally knit it and so it won't bother you. The next part is the knitting. So put the needle through the stitch . Then wrap the pencil with the working yarn and then pull it in between. And it will look like this. So you wanna scoop that yarn at the middle and then pull the stitch out to the other needle. And just tighten it but not too much. Don't worry, I'll demonstrate it again. You're also going to knit the slip knot. After that, we are going to start with the second layer. For the second layer, just bring the needle that you're holding with the right hand to the left so you can start knitting again. It is just the same process. If you have this loose loop, I'm sorry, I don't know how to deal with it because I'm also a beginner, but it didn't really matter that much to me. Again, you're just going to knit for the second layer. And here's where I changed my plan. As you can see, I went for a longer bag than a wider bag. And the last process is the bind off. This is the process where you separate the knitted fabric from the needle. For the first part, you wanna knit 2 stitches. When you're done knitting the 2 stitches, pull the first one forward over the second one. Then just let it fall and tighten. Now just do it to all of your stitches until you're only left with one. Now that you're only left with one, you wanna wrap the working yarn to your pencil from right to left. And pull the last stitch over. Now it's time to cut the working yarn and then just pull it away. Now mine turned out with this loose stitch, but I just fixed it later with the stitching. As you can see, it's not a perfect rectangle. What I did is just wet it and then stretch it into a rectangle. Since the water is heavy, it won't be able to go back to its original shape. So it will help making the form of a rectangle. This is the part where I stitch with a twist tie. Just twist the twist tie holding the yarn and then just stitch it inside some of the stitches or some gaps that you can see on your knitted fabric. To secure the two ends, you're also going to stitch it inside the gaps. and just cut it off after a few stitches. Now you just need to knit all of the pieces. For the cover, you need to decrease stitches to look like it's curved. So for that, you'll do a slip knot. First, you'll slip 2 stitches. But remember, you're just going to slip them to the other side, not knit. Then, transfer it again to the other side. Now, you're going to insert the right needle to both of them as if you're going to knit them as one. And now you have 1 stitch instead of 2. What I did to make the curve shape is for the first row, I did the slip knot twice to both sides, and then for the next row, I knitted all regularly. Then next, the same process with the slip knot, then for the next row, regular, until I'm satisfied with how curved it is. I'm going to show it to you again. The next thing I'm going to make is the bottom. So first, start with a square knot in macrame. Do another one, but this time, leave a space between the first one. Then just make more square knots until you have 4 to 5. It's supposed to look like this. Then take the 2 yarns that was hanging and then insert them to the space between the first square knot. Then just pull so the pattern of the square knots will curl up and make a circle. To secure, just tie the 2 yarns together tightly. Then, also tie the 2 yarns that you were making the square knot with behind. I was struggling because it was too short. Then just push the first square knot downward so it will look like a ribbon. With the loop that was hanging, just pull it downward and then secure it with the two hanging yarns. I needed my toe for this. Remember, don't cut the two hanging yarn because you're going to use it when you're going to stick the button to the fabric. For the buttonhole, you wanna find the center of the stitches. First, pull the yarn forward. Now it's supposed to be in the front of the stitches. For you to understand how to make a buttonhole, first you're going to bind off, then cast on at the top again, and I'm going to show it to you now. First, slide a single stitch at the other needle. Then, you need to wrap it with the working yarn, so just put the yarn back again at the back. Now slip another stitch and then do the bind. So I'm going to do this 4 times. It depends on the size of the buttonhole that you are making. Then just flip your work. Now you're gonna start the cast on. Slip the stitch to the other needle. Pull the working yarn at the back and then insert the other needle at the center of the 2 stitches at the left needle. Then pull the working yarn in. Now you have your first stitch, just transfer it to the other needle. Don't tighten it, insert the other needle and then do the process again. If you bind off 4 before, make sure to add 1, so now I need to cast on 5 stitches. Now that you cast on 5, just transfer a single stitch at the other side so you can reinforce the buttonhole and connect it. Once you transfer it, do the bind off again. Flip your work again and then start knitting. Now that I have all the pieces, all I need to do is just sew them together. Just connect the two ends first, then start stitching. I don't know what's the name of this stitch, but you'll see me do it and I think you'll understand it. Since I'm out of the frame, I'm just going to try to explain it. So first, you wanna poke the needle through the other knitted fabric upwards through the yarns, then downwards to the other needle fabric, making circle stitches. I hope that made sense, but this part is where I changed my plan that instead of knitting the slings, just braid it and then stick it, but I actually ditched that plan, so it's optional if you want some slings or not. Now that I got the 2D pattern laid out, it's time to add some dimensions. And I actually embroidered a red box inside the white so it won't look as plain. Now see a better view of how I stitch. So you can also apply this kind of stitching earlier, but you don't need to do it in an angle. When you're done stitching, just secure it. Now just connect all of the pieces together to make a 3D rectangle. Of course, it's just yarn, so it's kind of wobbly until it has something in it. Now it's time to add the button. So first, put a marker where the buttonhole is going to land. Next, insert the two yarns that was hanging from the buttons in the marked spot. The next step is to tie the two yarns inside, but make sure to make it not too tight so you can still use the button. And now we're done. So this is the finished product. I hope you liked it.
That's all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it, and just be patient because knitting actually takes time and it needs a lot of practice. Like for my first knitted fabric, it actually looks bad. I don't know if you can see it compared to the back, which is I had more practice with the bottom and side fabrics. So that's all. Bye. I'm going to end the video showing you a cleaner version of the pattern.